Okay, is everyone ready to start? Great. Hi everyone, welcome to the last round of the World Schools Debating Championship 2024. My name is Shimon, I'm from Slovakia, and I will be the chair judge for this round. I go by he, him pronouns, but please refer to the panel as a whole throughout your speeches. Now, before we do anything else, I would first like to ask my panel to introduce themselves. Let's see, start from the
Hi, my name is Paida. You can use he, him pronouns. I don't mind if you use they, them as well.
Hi, I'm Philip. More just aggressive panel. Good luck.
Thank you. We will be using Debate Keeper to time your speeches, so we will be hearing noise signals like this.
Not bad.
Yeah, so we'll be hearing signals like this to signal the end, and then again the beginning of the very time, as well as 2 times to signal the end of the speech at the 8-minute mark. But please also time yourself so that you don't run too much over time. Is there anything anyone would like to ask or raise a concern? Okay.
Can I slightly move this?
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, I can see that it's not doing the best to your papers.
Okay.
Don't you want to like turn it towards the speaker maybe, or will that?
Yeah,
There's a
from
little
that
speaker
speaker
over.
slide then.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Maybe this is fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, if that becomes a problem, just tell me and we can sort it out.
That's okay, so heavy object key stuff.
Yeah. Okay. In that case, without further ado, I would like to ask the first proposition speaker to open the debate. Here.
Okay. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel. On opposition side of house, they are directly stepping 50 years back in time and redoing everything that the feminist movement has achieved so far. 2 arguments in the proposition case. Firstly, perpetuating societal expectations, and secondly, limiting the choice of women. So now into the frame and definition. Firstly, what do we define as redoing these traditional roles? We tell you that this means, in news network or popular media, portraying these roles and behaviors in an excessively glorified way that makes women want to strive towards them and be viewed as something empowered. And what are these traditional roles or behaviors? Well, we define them as, for example, putting time into your in your appearance, wearing makeup, wearing heels, or acting in ways that is considered traditionally feminine, in a mediatory situations, not overreacting, so on and so forth. So now into the frame. We tell you, the most important stakeholder that you have to care in this debate is those women who seek solace and safe place in this feminist movement. We tell you that it's those women that do not want to conform to societal expectations. It's those women that want to behave in ways that are maybe viewed as unconventional or different from what the status quo is views as something acceptable, such as not wanting to wear makeup, not wanting to wear heels. We tell you that these women, these that do not want to conform into these stereotypes, into these expectations, are the group of women that you have to panel care most in this debate. And therefore, the burden to winning this debate is proving benefits to these women, or basically harms to these women, if we choose the policy that opposition is trying to push. So now, into the first argument about perpetuating societal expectations. We tell you that in the status quo, we live in a world where the status quo is dominated by a patriarchal society, where the way women behave is dominated basically by how men want them to behave. We tell you that this looks like, for example, 2 things. This looks like that women have to dress very properly when they go to work, or to school, or to any kind of setting. It means that they can't wear too revealing clothes, but they still have to, dress elegantly, or wear heels, wear makeup. And they also always have to look representable. It also looks like, for example, panel, that women are expected to get married and give birth to children as a duty, a societal duty and contribution to society. We tell you that this does not happen if we take males into consideration, because it's seen as something, respectable, something brave. If you choose to say that no, I don't want to have children, because it's like respectable if they choose to live in a bachelor lifestyle. So how? In opposition's world, they are glorifying these roles that are in the status quo where most women are oppressed and conforming to patriarchal norms. These are the things that they are defending. They want this narrative where, following these rules is considered something that empowered women do. They want to push for a world where this coercive behavior is allowed and viewed as something acceptable. And this is something that we absolutely say no to. We tell you that we do not want a mainstream narrative that perpetuates these expectations by men. This is not something that the feminist movement should do. We tell you that the feminist movement's main point of it is to allow a place where societal norms are flexible, where women are not put into certain boxes, where women do not have to follow certain stereotypes, behaviors, courses of behavior to be viewed as empowered or acceptable. And these are exactly those kind of things that opposition is trying to push on their side of the house, where the expectations of men are now validated and strengthened and even panel approved by the feminist movement itself. So we tell you that this is something that we absolutely do not allow on our side of the house. We tell you that this kind of behavior allows for 3 different kind of impacts. Firstly, we tell you that it will invalidate the real struggles of women. We tell you that in the status quo, if we allow this, it will cause for these types of behavioral roles and behaviors to be weaponized. What does this look like? We tell you that, for example, if you consider a housewife, does not like the way they're living, does not want to get out of this relationship, but it's impossible because they're so financially dependent on the men. On their side of the house, this woman now is not even incentivized to get out of this relationship because it is viewed as something acceptable. It is even viewed as something that you must strive for. Second example is also, for example, taking women in abusive marriages. Being in a marriage is considered something as a traditional societal role for women. On their side of the house, this again is also viewed as something acceptable, something good, and even if you are in this situation, you're not likely to come out and voice your struggles because society tells you that no, actually, you are considered as someone empowered. No, actually, you cannot get out of this marriage because now it shows you that you're not a strong woman, you're a weak woman because you want to get out of this marriage. This is something that we absolutely say no to. And thirdly, I also tell you that this point of weaponization, for example, if we take women into consideration, that go to office, go to work every day, and must wear makeup and heels to please the male colleagues or bosses around them. Now, in their world, they cannot ever get out of this cycle. This expectation is forever perpetuated. Now, if they refuse to do this, what is the reaction that society gives them? For example, the male coalition will now come to you and be like, "Are you not feminist? Oh my goodness, are you not feminist?" And question whether you believe that you are empowered, whether you believe that you should be treated equally to others, because that is a narrative that the feminist movement is pushing. So secondly, now getting into the second impact of this, we're telling you also that this is directly limiting the choices of young women. We tell you that if we push this popular narrative for young girls, we're basically telling them from a young age that they must conform to societal expectations. They must conform to these traditional roles and behaviors that often directly clash with many things that women nowadays want. For example, you cannot be ambitious anymore because that is something that's considered usually explicitly masculine. And now being in traditional feminine roles or behaviors, that is something that makes you empowered. And therefore, you cannot be ambitious, or you cannot be, assertive. You cannot do so many things. You cannot strive for so many things because it is not considered as acceptable. Sorry.
At the point where we find many young girls actually want to wear makeup, and on your side of the house, you tell them that that's not feminism. How do you then account for it?
Thank you for your POI. What we're trying to do on our side of the house is not saying that no, you cannot wear makeup. On our side of the house, we're giving these women choices to wear what they want. We do not judge, but we do not also tell you that what is okay. But the point is, panel, the main difference is that we do not judge them, but we also do not push a narrative onto them. Because note, panel, that if we push a narrative on them, it gives them the perception that only being in one type of situation, only being conforming to one stereotype is the right way to go. Only behaving in a certain way is the only way to be an actual woman. And we do not. We tell you that there's something that we actually absolutely cannot accept on our side of the house. We tell you that it is not okay to push this narrative on children because they're extremely susceptible to these different narratives because they haven't really gotten into society yet. They do not actually even know the reasons why these roles were discouraged in the first place. They do not know the historic background of why we are not in the status quo pushing women to become housewives, because they do not know the hardships that women in history experience. And on their side of the house, they are disregarding all of this and still pushing this role onto young girls. And thirdly, we give the final impact of this is counterproductivity of the feminist movement. So with this, we're actually pushing confirmation bias onto society. Let's take into consideration, especially old men, old conservative men. They who already in the status quo believe that women have to act in a certain way, dress in a certain way, behave in a certain way. Now all of this is on their side validated. Now they think that, oh my God, even the liberals think that even the liberals agree with me on how women should dress or behave. So on our side of the house, actually, we are standing for gender equality. We are standing for a better life for women. So proud to propose. Thank you.
I thank the first proposition speaker for their fine speech, and now to open the debate for the opposition, I would like to invite the first opposition speaker to share the
Okay.
All right.
I'd like to begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Proposition lost this debate when they made it about women than about the perception of women through feminism. We find this at the point where they only say feminism twice in their entire speech. We don't think that we think that is a clear indication of how they have misconstrued what this motion is actually about. But even if you don't believe it, then notice how those are lacking characterization on what feminism is and what feminism should be, and a lacking characterization of what social justice movements are. Things which I'm going to address in my substantive. So what do we actually hear from proposition? One, from their very misconstrued case, we hear how their first argument then is on how it perpetuates social expectations, right? We tell you this is untrue for a number of reasons, right? Well, first of all, we tell that we hear an insufficient analysis on how then opposition glorifies oppression. But I'm going to address most of this again in my substantive matter. So when they said that they want women to have societal flexible roles, that they want women to break away from stereotypes, we tell you we agree. What opposition was truly supposed to defend then was how, in opposing their attempts to, by the feminist movement to redefine these traditionally feminine roles, how they're still able to maintain and retain the number of women and actually cause that feminism movement to grow. We do not think we have sufficient analysis at all on this, because all we hear is about what women are supposed to do and what women aren't supposed to do, but we don't hear any sufficient analysis on how this then translates into the feminism movement, because this is at the core and the debate about feminism. Moving on. Some of the impacts that we heard, right, is how it invalidates the real struggles of women. First of all, we know this isn't true, but secondly, even if it was true, right, we know that the real struggles of women is historically being told what you can and cannot do. And we think this happens inside proposition. When you tell a woman that if you wear a makeup and heels, then we can no longer empower you to be a feminist, because that is exactly what they must defend on their side of the house, right? But secondly, we tell you that we solve this case clearly on our side, right? Because I'm going to draw a very clear dichotomy here. On our side of the house, we tell a woman who wears makeup and heels, who wants to be a housewife, that you are just as much a woman, that you just as much matter as a woman who wants to go to corporate, who wants to have a business, who wants to focus on their careers, right? We think that this is, just a clarification on what we've always been saying, how they've misconstrued what they should actually defend, right? We asked them a very important point, right? When you said at the point where a young girl still wants to wear makeup, your side would actively tell them, I won't take you, that you don't get to be a woman when you do this, right? And then the only response to this was that they actually offered them more choice. But how? First of all, we think choice is not necessarily something that should matter at all in this debate, right? This debate is about buy-in, this debate is about unity, right? We don't necessarily think that in as much as choice matters, it should not be prioritized to what the feminist movement truly is, which is about unity, buy-in, and whatnot. But secondly, we think that we have more choice on our side at the point when we do bring in these people, at the point when we allow them to exercise what they truly want to be and exercise their freedoms. Now that I've sufficiently addressed the case, allow me to move on to what I'm going to do on side opposition. I'm going to do 3 things for you today. The first thing, I'm going to frame what this debate is actually about. Second, I'm going to offer you some proper characterization, including the intrinsic nature of what feminism is. But thirdly, I'm going to offer your arguments with sufficient stakeholder analysis and an outcome analysis on why our outcomes are likely to happen. Moving on to the framing. Panel, we tell you that this debate is about on which side of the house do we cater the most to the feminist movement, right? Prop tells us that we do this by opposing attempts to redefine traditionally feminine roles, but opposition disagrees, right? Notice how then on side opposition, we don't necessarily have to show how their attempts will be successful, right? But we believe that proposition needs to do a number of things. One, they need to tell us what these attempts will look like, right? Because at the point where the only thing we heard from this is some vague idea of some advertisement, we don't think this is a necessarily holistic view of how they're exactly going to accomplish this burden, right? In fact, we tell you that there are a lot of, most of the narrative that is being pushed in these advertisements is exactly the type that wants to redefine these roles, right? And we think this is not something that proposition has addressed. But secondly, we tell you that our stance then as side opposition is that it is principally inconsistent for the feminist movement to disenfranchise the women that it should cater for as well, right? We tell that if we can show how we win out on this principle justification, then it is enough for us to take this debate. Moving on to our characterizations. What is the nature of social justice movements, right? We tell you a number of things here. Firstly, we tell you that social justice movements progress by redefining and reclaiming narratives. For instance, look at how the civil rights movement reclaimed the N-word from free enslaved black people and repurposed it from a derogatory word into one that is of empowerment, right? But secondly, if you don't believe that example, look at how the queer movement has reclaimed the word queer from something that was derogatory to something that is socially acceptable. We think this is exactly the type of positive change that we want to see on our house and that we are defending. Please, I'll take you later. But the significance of this analysis then is that we show you that a word or a narrative only has as much power as you socially allow it. And at the point where we reclaim something, then we dissociate the harm from the word and no longer becomes powerful, right? But we also tell you that social justice movements grow from discourse, right? And the other thing that we tell you is that they require unity and buy-in, right? We show that unity is different from buy-in in the sense that buy-in gets people in through the door, but unity is going to keep them there. The significance of this will be elaborated in my substantive. But moving on, the second area of characterization is on feminism as a principle, right? We tell you that feminism focuses on the liberation of women, of all women. Opposition needs to know to show how the attempts of blocking the redefinition of these narratives doesn't alienate a significant part of the stakeholders of this debate. And finally, on the last area of characterization is on how social justice movements are inherently diverse, right? We think that they're monolithic in the sense that you find how even in black people will have like things like colonialism, etc. Now, things like colorism, etc. Now allow me to move on to my argument. So I'm going to propose 2 arguments for you today. One being on how the intrinsic comes that this poses to feminism. And the second argument is going to be spoken on by my second speaker. On the first argument on how it intrinsically harms feminism, right? We tell that opposing the redefinition of these narratives poses significant harms to feminism at the point where it is principally inconsistent to the nature of what feminism truly is. So what is feminism, right? The first step to this is that the power of feminism comes from unity, right? As social justice movements never moves forward on its own. It relies on allies. I'm going to further expand on this in my stakeholder analysis. But secondly, the second layer is that it perpetuates patriarchal forms of thinking, right? Because when you oppose the redefinition of narratives, you are telling a woman that in order for you to be truly feminine, you need to look and act a certain way, right? The impact then is that it decreases buy-in because we don't think that allies are likely to. We think that allies are likely to unsubscribe because they won't align with the feminism movement or what it's becoming, and that it undoes decades of progress, right? Because from the women's suffrage movement, we started out with women being told that, hey, you have to stay in the kitchen, hey, you have to do certain things. But the reason we moved away from that is because we told people that in as much as you can do more than that, it is also okay for you to be doing those things as long as you're staying true to who you truly are. So now allow me to give you a stakeholder analysis on who truly matters in this debate. One, we tell that the most important stakeholders in this debate will be women, right? All women, as opposed to the limited number of women that proposition is going to defend. But secondly, we tell that we would also prioritize allies, right, who are vital to the progress of any social justice movement, let alone one of feminism, right? We win out on the stakeholder analysis on magnitude, right, where we're able to preserve bias, we get more people to join our side of the house because we actually cater to the needs for both women who want to who want to express their femininity and women who would also like to branch out and explore more qualities about themselves, right? But secondly, we not talk quality of life then, because we tell someone who wants to wear makeup and heels that you are also empowered, that you can also you also matter to our movement and to who you are, right? Now, and here's finally an outcome analysis on what the harms we bulleted are likely to happen. Allow me to introduce a couple of new mechanisms for this. One is on the reactive nature of a socially just generation that currently exists right now. We think this is an extremely volatile generation, right? What does this mean then? At the point where you tell people that we're not good, at the point where you tell people that when you wear makeup and heels, you will not be empowered. That when you wear makeup and heels, you will not belong to this feminist movement. We think that we're likely to see a strong reaction from a lot of Gen Z specifically, who believe that feminism should be about expression, about freedom, and not about alienation. But secondly, on the permeation of social media and digital platforms. On closing, allow me to say this. We need corresponding analysis on why the outcomes won't happen and why our analysis won't stand. We tell you that feminism is freedom, feminism is inclusive. I've never been harder to oppose. Thank you.
Thank the first opposition speaker for that speech, and now we will continue the debate for the proposition. I would like to invite the second opposition speaker to finish their speech. Here.
Start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Feminism at its core is about equality. It is about ensuring that men and women are equal. However, we here in Team Proposition believe that we do not currently live in such a world, right? Because, as our first speaker pointed out, we currently live still in a patriarchy. Most countries, to the point where we can very easily say that a big majority of countries are still living under some form of patriarchy. Even those who are the most empowered, even those where women have the most voice, they are still a patriarchal society in the end, which makes it so that these societies have an immense power imbalance when it comes to women and when it comes to men. And while we are truly happy that Team Opposition is so passionate about giving as many women as many choices as possible, we here in Team Proposition simply do not believe that redefining traditionally feminine roles and behaviors as empowering is the way to do it. And I will, in my speech, I will first go on to a bit of rebuttal, and then I will go on to our substantive, and through this, I will hopefully explain to you how exactly we here in Team Opposition truly do empower women. So, what we heard from Opposition 1 is that one of the things that social movements should do is re-empower and retake power into their own hands, right? And they gave us they gave us 2 examples of how this has been done. And the example that I will be looking at is the example of queer, right? A lot of queer people have taken over the word queer to be something that is empowering, to be something that they can use to show people that they are no longer afraid of this term. We here in Team Proposition believe that while it is to an extent a good thing, it has also done a lot of harms, because this means that a lot of young people who are within the LGBTQ community do not actually know the history of queer. A lot of these people don't know how queer actually oppressed LGBTQ people, how queer was used to show them that they are weird, how queer has been used to oppress these people, which has made a bit of a divide in the older and younger in the older and younger generation of LGBTQ people on whether or not queer is actually an acceptable term. And we here at Tea Proposition believe that a similar thing will happen with these traditionally feminine roles, where young people will not be properly educated on why we went away from these traditional roles and why we do not want to empower them, as they are still very problematic in status quo. Then, Team Opposition went on about how our side is telling young girls and young women, and women in general, that they cannot wear makeup, they cannot wear heels, they cannot be a housewife and feel empowered through that. However, we here at Team Opposition heavily believe that there's a difference when it comes to what individuals define as empowerment and when social movements do it, right? We are talking about social movement, we are talking about feminism, and their attempts to redefine traditional feminine roles as being empowered. While an individual can see themselves wearing heels and makeup as empowered, we don't believe that the feminist movement should enforce this, mainly due to the fact that it perpetuates the current societal oppression that women are going through by men and patriarchy putting them in boxes, telling them that you have to do things in order for us to take you seriously as a woman. And we here in Team Proposition simply do not want that kind of a narrative, as we do not believe that it properly gives women choices, as they still have to comply to these traditionally feminine things. So, when it comes to our substantive, our second argument is that we here in Team Proposition are truly giving freedom to women. When we look at status quo, women have been, throughout their entire life, socialized into traditionally feminine roles, right? What does this look like? It looks like young girls being told to sit with their legs closed. It looks like young girls being told not to cry, not to scream. It looks like young girls being socialized differently than young boys simply because they're girls. They have to uphold to certain values. They have to uphold to certain traditions that they cannot move away from. Otherwise, they are not seen as a girl. Otherwise, they are not seen as feminine. Otherwise, they are not seen as a person, essentially. They are seen as something other. They are seen as something weird, and they're seen as something weird and something that should not be listened to. And we here in Team Proposition believe that this is a truly horrible thing to do to these young girls and these young women. When it comes to the redefining of as traditional femininity, if the feminist movement were to do this, then it would. Then what we believe is that a lot of the social movements that are currently already looking at feminism as something not to be taken seriously can now take this and essentially use it against feminism. Yes.
In your world, would you tell a woman who has makeup that she is feminine?
If that is how they feel like, then certainly. But yes, what we have seen in status quo is that we believe that these redefinition attempts, if it were to be successful, would only give the right wing and those who are not feminists a chance to use the feminist movement against women who are already being oppressed in status quo. What does this look like? Well, currently we have the right wing movement, right? Especially on social media. They are trying to. Some of the people who are trying to, who are attempting to do this redefining as feminine as empowerment, and what this has accomplished is that essentially now a lot of women who don't conform to these values are being told that you're not feminine, you're not a girl, you're not a woman, blah 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 blah, right? These women cannot feel like women because they do not conform to this traditional femininity. And we here in the feminist movement want to ensure that those women can also feel like women, that those women can also see themselves as something to be listened to, as something to be listened to, and as something to be heard.
Point.
No, thank you. As we stated in our first speech, we believe that the women that we should be most looking at within this debate are those who currently do not conform to these traditional values which patriarchy is pushing upon them. Mainly because we believe that they are the ones who are most vulnerable in this debate. Mainly due to the fact that they are currently not being taken seriously due to the fact that they're not seen as women. They're seen as something else. Therefore, it is far easier to discriminate against them. And the feminist movement has given them a voice. The feminist movement has given them a way to show that I am also a woman, I am also feminine, and I can do what I want with my life without, and I can do what I want with my life. And we believe that this empowerment, this bringing up of these women is incredibly important, and far more important, and is incredibly important so that we can reach a true equality. Because we do not believe in team competition that we have yet reached a point in society where we can redefine traditional femininity as empowering without having all of these problems that we have brought to you in, without all these societal problems that we have brought to you in team competition, such as the perpetuation of these problems, such as the non-empowerment of women who do not belong to these traditionally feminine boxes, and so on. While we do believe that you can see these things as empowering as an individual, but we do not believe that social movement, such as feminism, should redefine it as empowering due to the reasons that we have stated, such as women who don't belong into these boxes, not being seen as feminine, not being listened to, and them generally being discriminated against far more in society. And that is why we are so happy to propose. Thank you.
And the second proposition speaker for the speech, and now to continue the debate for the opposition, I would like to invite the second opposition speaker to deliver their speech. Here you go.
Okay, might go like this. Great, so I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. This House opposes attempts by the feminist movement to redefine traditionally feminine roles and behaviors as empowering. Let's begin by just defining what redefine means. Now, when you say the word redefine, it essentially means to make amendments. For example, team opposition is essentially saying that this bottle of water in the status quo was meant to hold water. But now, all we want to do is to redefine the purpose of this bottle. Not to only hold water, but to also hold juice, but to also hold, smoothies and shakes and extra, etc., etc. That is what redefining means, and that is what side opposition is saying. Now, side proposition are pushing a narrative where the feminist movement gets to dictate how women should behave the same way the patriarchal thinking that they are so badly against. So we tell you, the feminist movement that side proposition is perpetrating is literally a replica of the patriarchal movement that they're so against. Ladies and gentlemen, we tell you, just because historically women were not given a choice to wear heels and at the same time pursue a corporate world, we tell you that this is not the world that we live today. We tell you that in the status quo, women inequality and gender gap has been significantly reduced. So we're now telling you that these behaviors that we're seeing, this empowering like makeups and heels, we're now telling you that that is not necessarily the case. We're now telling you that wearing a makeup, that wearing heels, wanting to be a housewife means that you are also just of a woman as the one that does not wishes to wear makeup and so on. All we want to do is tell you that these traditional behaviors are not a weakness to women, but there is those are things that you should be proud of, you should embody and so forth. Ladies and gentlemen, we asked a significant POI, which was, would you tell a woman who wears makeup that she is feminine on the side of their house? And the response to this was yes. Now we tell you that when they tell a woman who wears makeup that is feminine, they are directly clashing with their burden as stated by the motion. Their burden is to defend why such women who wear makeup must be alienated from the feminist movement because they are wearing makeup which is, according to them, disempowering. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not saying that the traditional roles are going to be the Bible for the feminist movement. All we're simply saying is that not wearing makeup or being a housewife is also being feminist. Ladies and gentlemen, all we want to do is repurpose this bottle to hold water, juice, milkshakes, tea, and so on. Ladies and gentlemen, I think now all the arguments of dominating, all the arguments of patriarchal thinking, validating women's struggle, confronting societal changes,
all of that are irrelevant because they are they're essentially saying that in our house we're bringing back women to the olden days, which is not necessarily true. Like what we're saying to you is that in our house, feminism is expanded, is expanded because women of different nature who choose to be, who choose to wear makeup, to wear heels, to be a housewife, can also be part of the feminist movement and not be alienated, because that is what side proposition is saying. We're also telling you that their house, we tell you that it is principally inconsistent of the feminist movement to tell them what they should do, what they should wear. Because the feminist movement is essentially telling women to be able to pursue the things that they want, to be able to wear heels and at the same time go to the corporate world, to be able to choose to be a housewife or choose to go to work and so on. So them saying that if you're a housewife, that if you're wearing makeup, that if you're wearing heels, these empowering behaviors, and this goes against feminists, we tell you that that is principally, on a principal level, inconsistent to the feminist movement, ladies and gentlemen, because the feminist movement is all about inclusion, the feminist movement is all about empowering, the feminist movement is all, supporting women in their various shapes and sizes and choices, and that is something that they are actively going against when they now cater to a specific portion of the women who only decide not to wear makeup, who only decide not to be a housewife. I hope I'll make it clear for you all. I'd like to move on to my arguments, which is it disenfranchising women who innately desire to align with traditional feminine values. Now, women come in many shapes and forms. They can wear revealing clothes and also wear not really revealing clothes. They can leave a child at home and go to work, or they can choose to stay at home with their children, with their husbands, and so on. So opposing attempts to redefine the traditional values as empowering actively discriminates these women who want to pursue such traditional roles, which goes against the feminist movement in principle. Now, this is uniquely harmful to these women because many of these values form important parts of their identity, especially me as a Tanzanian woman, an African woman. We value these traditions, right? So if I go to an American society, right, where they believe that women should not wear makeup, where they believe that women should not be put in housewives, and they think that's not being feminist. If I go there with my principles that I uphold and I have willingly chosen them to be a housewife, in that society, I will actively be segregated by the feminist movement because they will see me as a traitor. They will see me as a traitor to their cause, and that is something that side proposition is pushing. These traditional values tend to be highly regarded by their family and friends, which form a valuable part of their experiences and environment. The significance of this layer is that it highlights why these traditional values and models of womanhood are a valuable part of their lives that need for protection regardless of their outcomes. We tell you, as long as these women chose these lives, they don't deserve to be outcasted. They don't deserve not to be supported by the feminist movement, because at the end of the day, my first speaker characterizes the feminist movement is all about inclusion, it's all about support, it's all about empowering, and this should look across all sides without any condition. We tell you that feminism shouldn't have condition. That is what we are trying to tell you. Now, the impacts of this, it encourages these women to be authentic, to be their authentic selves, right? This will allow them to live happier lives that will improve their mental health. I no longer need to worry about how other women perceive me because of my choices, because that is what essentially side proposition is pushing. Because with their narrative, I'm constantly afraid to express my true authentic self. I'm constantly afraid of the shame, of the poor negative discourse that I'll get from my fellow women, as the way they will alienate me because of the choices that I myself chosen. It is principally inconsistent for women to go against other women simply because they chose a different lifestyle. We'll tell you that this is not what feminism stands for. It actively alienates women that have offered different perspectives, and it is also important to the evolution. We tell you that these women also offer different unique perspective that is also important to the evolution of the feminist movement, because we tell you, like any other movement, it is always evolutionary, and to sidetrack these women, we tell you that it will be denying the issue of expressing their unique perspective towards this movement. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to ask yourself this. Where is women most protected? Where can we find women most protected? And we find women most protected in our house, because what we're trying to say, all that we're trying to say is we want our women to be able to not wear makeup and feel okay, but also for women who are wearing makeup to feel at the same time okay. What side or proposition is saying is that they only want women who choose not to wear makeup to feel okay, and all the women who choose to be housewives not to feel okay because they're actively going against the feminist movement. And in fact, they bring up this analysis that when we support our agenda, we're bringing back ourselves to the olden days. They don't necessarily make analysis. We tell you that there is no causal link, there is no full analysis that can prove by simply allowing women to wear makeup and be housewives. We're simply going to the olden times where women could not even go to school. We tell you that that is a false narrative and an unproven narrative, and a narrative that has so many analysis and inconsistency in their side. Thank you.
Okay, I kindly set the third opposition speaker for the next speech, and now to wrap the debate for the proposition, I would like to invite the third proposition speaker to deliver their speech. Here.
All right, if it's okay, I'll take a moment to notes. Okay. I will begin my speech with I will begin in 3, 2. The box that limits you to cultural norms, the box of suffering and of dissatisfaction is only enforced by everyone around you now. That is the reality in which these women, or the women that are alienated, will feel when the feminist movement actively promotes this narrative. The escape for women who feel that society has let them down and has repeatedly told them that this is the way you should act, are neglected. They have their safe haven of personal expression taken away. And instead, the narrative that they hate so much and work to get out of, which is that you should be a woman, you should be a housewife, you should be a mother, imposed and forced onto you. The only place where you could feel safe in expressing these ideals are now gone, and in the contrary, are going against you. Normally, I would be proud to propose, but I cannot propose proudly when the world around these women turn, and the feminist movement, the safe haven that is the feminist movement and protects the women from the world around them, turn their backs and plunge a deep knife into their backs. Firstly, on what is rebuttal. What is really our burden in this debate? They have told us from first that our burden is to actually defend how the feminist movement will expand and the interests of it. We tell you very clearly, this is not an actor motion. We do not need to cater specifically for the needs or interests of the feminist movement. Thus, our argumentation on societal impacts stands as valid as ever, and that is just a push debating which they are trying to impose upon us. We do not accept. Meaning, and now let's then talk about how our model, which was made clear in our first speech, but apparently the second speaker wanted clarification. Here's our model. We want to we want to have media narratives empower all women. This is maybe through media, this is through feminist rallies, this is through feminist advertisement, whatever that's related to feminism. The narrative and the counter model that we propose, instead of this empowering one group, select group of women, we empower all women. Say that we are neutral towards if you want to be a housewife or not to be a housewife. We don't discourage the act of being a housewife, as they have continually assumed that we do. We don't, and that's what we tell you, and that's what I wanted to make a difference in. Now, opposition's attacks on why this is principally unjustified is contingent on the fact that we degrade women who continually conform to societal norms of femininity. We tell you that we value these women because as just because we don't discriminate against them. We told you that we don't judge against them. We believe that all women should be equal, meaning that if you want to conform to feminine traits, and you also want to be a feminist, so be it. But we aren't glorifying glorifying these women or saying that you're a good woman because you do this. All right, I'll take you.
How do you, quote unquote, value all women when you tell a woman who wants to be a traditional housewife that she cannot be empowered as stated by the motion?
We don't tell you that traditional woman who wants to be a household will be alienated from the feminist movement. We told you just that the feminist movement won't actively push this kind of a narrative. We would say that they'd just be neutral about it. They wouldn't degrade them or shame them, as they say. And the burden and this motion does not make us, by the way, defend the fact that we have to degrade women who want to conform to these feminine values. So meaning that, let's then talk about a bit of weighing. Let me do a bit of weighing for why these women who are most vulnerable, who are shunned by society, who are continuously being told by society that they have to conform to feminist values, are the main stakeholder and group that we should care about. We tell you that because the status quo is so bad, because the status quo actively harms them, that we need a safe community for them to fit into. Meaning that they also, these people that they talk about, of like willingly becoming a housewife, do not already fit into societal norms. They are not discriminated against in the status quo, meaning that they are already a much more empowered group than our group, who is continually being told that you should dress this way, that you are not a mother, pressuring you into motherhood. These people who are most marginalized, most vulnerable, are the people we should care about. They're the group that are continually being told by society that this is a bad thing, and the feminist movement is the only way they can seek relief from that. No, thank you. This means that we have already, in conclusion, opposition's entire case on why this is principally unjustified is mitigated or completely just wiped out because we told you that we don't degrade these women. We let these women into the feminist rallies who want to wear dresses the same way other women do. Meaning that, but what we do oppose is the fact that we are empowering one group of women. Because we're showing, where this motion clearly states that the feminist movement is redefining women so that there's this one small subclass of women who are inherently better, or you should strive to be like them, rather than accepting all women. We think that this goes incredibly against their own point of inclusivity. So this means we essentially we told you why these women who offer different perspectives, who don't necessarily want to come into society, we told you that these women who don't necessarily conform to, who do conform to societal norms, are also allowed under our side of the house, and that these women who are being societally discriminated against should be actually accepted. Now they don't feel accepted. Now that is a hostile environment in which they operate. I'll take you.
Yes, I wanted to say that at the point where you said that you want to cater for all women and that you want to tell all women that you accept it, but the motion says this house opposes attempts to redefine narratives, yada yada yada, for women who are not empowered. How do you account for that on your side of the house?
Yes, we shouldn't attempt to redefine a certain subclass of women as empowered. That's what we oppose. But we don't need to oppose the degradation of another class of the class of women who conform to societal norms. Like, I don't understand. Maybe they misread the motion, but we clearly can debate in the neutral stance of we do not discriminate against these women who conform to societal values. In conclusion, we stand for the freedoms of women, stand for the emancipation of these women whose ideologies are continually being trespassed upon by society. Stand for the side which reevaluates societal norms for all women, not for a specific marginal subset of them. Stand for team proposition.
I thank the third proposition speaker. We will wait for a while. Okay, goes to the bathroom. So, yes. We wanted to ask if you would like, the fan to prepare the roasted for is it equal? Yeah. Just feel free to make it as close to you as the cable allows.
Do you have a socket somewhere on the wall so we can plug the fan?
There's one here.
That's too far, right? Like if it goes to
Yeah, it doesn't go much further.
Oh, well. Does this help in any way?
Do you guys feel it?
can I ask you a position? You just. Okay.
You feel good? Good enough.
Okay. In that case, I would like to ask the third opposition speaker to present their speech, and as a compensation, we will give slightly more time to offer questions to their speech. Yeah, okay.
Starts in 3, 2, 1. Side proposition can support a stance of neutrality because the motion simply is not allowed. First. Secondly is that they are supporting and branding traditional behaviors like wearing makeup is anti-feminist. Ladies and gentlemen, in this debate I'll be doing two things. Firstly, I'll be highlighting the strategic flaws that are present in the fraudulent case presented by side proposition, and secondly, I'll be analyzing the clashes that were present in this debate and show how exactly side opposition has victoriously won of them. Moving on to strategic flaws. The first strategic flaws relied on the contradictions that were present on all the speakers on bench proposition. First off, we could see this when we asked them the POI, if whether or not a woman who wears makeup is to be considered as feminine. This is something that they consider to. This is something that they agree to. Therefore, showing how shaky they are, how incompetent they are on their case. Secondly, is that we asked them if. Secondly, is that they claim that individuals who personally accepted that they're okay with wearing makeup, they're okay with wearing heels, they're okay with being housewives, then that is something that is okay. They can be considered as feminine. They can personally identify themselves as feminine. But then on another aspect, they make an engagement and analysis claiming that as a social movement, it is not individuals who attempt to wear makeup, individuals who attempt to be stay-at-home wives are not considered as feminine. Very, very controversial. Another thing is on their entire stance. They claim here, they come here claiming that being neutral, they come here stating a neutral stance to the motion, talking about how exactly talking about how exactly the motion does not really encompass the whole aspect of whether or not women should be considered as feminine if they wear makeup or not. Something that is highly controversial. Another strategic flaw is on the engagement. We see that side proposition has failed to engage with their push burden, which were mainly three. They did not justify to us how exactly these attempts will look like. Secondly, they did not justify and defend why a woman who wears makeup and heels should be disempowered. And lastly is that they did not provide an extensive analysis on how redefining will prevent the progression of feminism in itself. Something that we denied, something that we as side opposition have managed to counter very strategically and very victoriously. Another issue is on clarity. We see that they give us a stance where they claim that women who do not conform to societal norms, such as wearing makeup, such as heels, should not really be considered as feminists. This stance was actually not clear and did not really provide a clear backup on their particular standing on this motion. Moving on to my clash analysis. A key question that we should ask ourselves and should consider when judging this debate is which side, which bench caters for all women, which bench caters for choice, which bench gives choice to all women, and which bench allows for the progression and also the endorsement of feminism in our world today. We as side proposition came here. We as side proposition victoriously managed to answer this question and extensively provided analysis whereas we talked about how we were able through redefining these attempts to cater for women who do not really conform to societal norms. In our side, we see women being authentic. We see women being able to express themselves and be authentic to themselves, and in a way stand to the values and beliefs that they believe are right, based on their social and cultural standing and identification. Another thing is that in our side we see women of different perspectives are empowered. They're able to express themselves, they're able to present themselves in ways that are comfortable to their personality, to their beliefs and standing. Something that is not present to side proposition. Another thing is that in our side we see the progression and the upheaval of feminism in itself. We see in our side where feminism, the power of feminism comes from unity amongst women. We see in our side the discouragement. We see in our side the discouragement and the unapproval of patriarchal thinking. We see in our side more buying amongst women and the uphold of women in itself. We see in our side where the quality of life of women in our society is upheld. Now, inside opposition, a side that has had a fraudulent case, they came here up to stage promoting patriarchal thinking. Whereas, first off, they kill the progression of feminism, the feminist movement in itself. In their side. Another thing is that they make a mischaracterization on our case, claiming that it is in our side where we oblige women to wear makeup, to wear heels. It is in our side we fight a form of patriarchal thinking. This is not true. But in actual sense, patriarchal influences exist in their side, exist in bench proposition. We see in their side, women are forced to conform to patriarchal influences. Women who are comfortable with wearing makeup, who are comfortable with wearing heels, are in a way conform to these patriarchal influences. In their side, we have no buying, we have no choice for women. In their side, they do not cater for women who do not conform to the general ideology or the aspect of wearing makeup, or wearing heels, and all other traditional values of feminism denied. In their side, they kill the progression of feminism in itself. In their side, we see women seeking to be validated, seeking to be ensured, simply because they do not really have the privilege or the right to express themselves authentically, just as men. Another thing is that side propositions fail to validate the struggle by women in itself. In their side, we see the presence of this redundant cycle that is oppressive, whereas women are considered as inferior to men. We see in their side young girls questioning themselves whether or not the decisions they make in their choice of wear, their choice of appearance is acceptable. We see in their side there is absence of choice in itself. Side proposition do not believe redefining is not the way, the right way to empower. Something that they claim explicitly but fail to in itself provide an analysis that is extensive and paints a picture to their wall. We asked them a clear. They brought up an issue concerning individuals who are queer, using the term queer itself, sort of in a way discourages their representation of homosexual and queer values. Ladies and gentlemen, first off, we have to understand that in this claim that was made by proposition, the scope of this debate in itself does not really cross on the historical aspect of things. And we cannot really oppose on several substantive matters based on examples that do not really have any form or sorts of causal links in this debate. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, dear panel, vote for a side that promotes women being authentic to themselves, vote for a side that conforms and caters for all types of women in all forms of expression that are acceptable to the society and that make them comfortable and give them the same privilege as men. Thank you.
Thank the third opposition speaker for the next speech, and now to move to the summary part of the debate. And first slide is the opposition reply speaker who will give their speech.
All right. Thank you. I'd like to begin my speech in 3, 2. In a world where side opposition loses, we do so because side affirmative understood the motion. But at the point where this debate became about feminism from opposition one, at the point where they themselves say, quote unquote, we don't need to cater for the needs of the feminist movement, I think that they step significantly away from their burden, and their short expressions mean that they themselves are not listening to their third speech. In a world where side opposition loses, it is because side affirmative accomplished their burden and side affirmative wanted to take a neutral stance. But as we said, and they also agreed, this motion being an action motion of this House opposes, right, means that they cannot already defend neutrality on their side. In fact, even if they do so, this debate would not be able to happen. Panel. In a world where side opposition loses, we do so because side proposition successfully accomplished their burdens. And what were these burdens? There were 2 burdens, right? One, on how they should give us numerous attempts on how they would redefine these feminist narratives. But secondly, on why they would defend women who want to make up a journal such as empowering. And the only thing we heard on this clash was how they would have media narratives that empower all women. But notice how one, this is a neutral narrative that they cannot push because the motion does not allow them to do so, right? But even if we responded to them when we said, we think current advertisements already push for the exact sort of redefinitive narratives, of which the only response then that we had coming from proposition was on how their model, they clarified the model in how it empowers all women. But here's what we think about that. We think this response shoots themselves on the foot, right? Because this House opposes attempts to redefine narratives means that proposition doesn't want to impose certain narratives about women who want to make up and etc., right? Therefore, we win this debate simply because we are able to show how we cater to our burden and to then prove how they are able to accomplish their very simple burden. But panel, in a world where side opposition loses, we do so because in as much as we provided arguments and outcomes, perhaps we don't show as much analysis on one, our outcomes are likely to happen, and 2, well, would be preferable, right? Therefore, we are going to introduce metrics for mechanizing these outcomes and the likelihood of them happening. Therefore, we are going to say that the arguments we provided are 1, that it would harm the feminist movement, but secondly, it would disenfranchise women who wish to who wish to cater to more traditional perspectives, right? And the outcomes that we gave it that is that it would reduce bias and unity. It would encourage women to not be the authentic, and it would encourage women to be the authentic selves, right? And the analysis we gave this was in our characterization of social justice narratives, which came from opposition, by the way, on how they progress by redefining narratives, right? And how social justice movements are dependent on the buy-in, but we did not hear any analysis on buy-in, we don't hear any analysis on unity coming from side proposition, right? The metrics that we gave then from side opposition was on the volatility of social justice generations, right? And secondly, on the existence of things such as social media, digital platforms, which means that any attack on the feminist agenda will reach young generation of women and girls who are likely to react because of the way that feminism is currently perceived in contemporary world, no engagement at all, right? The counter outcomes that we heard from side government, from side government were three. One, that it would invalidate real struggles of women, that it would limit the choice of young girls, that it is counterproductive. One, we told you that the real struggles of women are in being told on what to do, right? But secondly, we think that everything that they're pushing for actually pushes to a patriarchal way of thinking from which you have no response, right? But notice how, in as much as they gave us outcomes, they lack analysis on the likelihood of their outcomes, they lack metrics on how they are going to accomplish these outcomes. But secondly, they even lack the principle justification on which to stand on, right? And the counter principle that we saw in opposition was the principle of feminism. But secondly, we said that we are principally justified in doing so, because if we don't, then we become principally inconsistent. At the end of the day, panel, it is very simple. Feminism is freedom. Feminism is inclusive. We told you about a world where opposition loses. This is one where opposition wins. Thank you.
I thank the opposition reply speaker. Now to balance the readout, we decided to give you, 2 minutes since opposition has, prepared information back for opposition 3. So, just not to seem unfair, you can take some extra time to write down. There were 2 minutes, so with that in mind, I would like to ask the proposition reply speaker to address the conclusion.
Opposition tells you that the feminist movement is supposed to promote freedom and inclusivity for all, but opposition fails to prove their burden on why a specific group of women should be favored and empowered over others. That was their burden, and they failed to prove it. So, again, now the strategic mistake in this debate was not engaging to our arguments when we explained to you that by empowering one group of women above all others, we are actually only perpetuating these societal norms, because in current status quo, in the status quo, these women who dress in heels and wear makeup and are housewives, they are the norm. They are what the patriarchal society that is ruled by men expects them to do. So we tell you why they don't matter as much. We told you first that they are not discriminated or alienated that much in the status quo because they already conform to these rules. And secondly, we also told you that these women are usually more conservative because they choose this lifestyle over others, and no engagement on any of these points. And moreover, we tell you that we have a neutral stance in is the feminist movement? The feminist movement is supposed to promote equality for all women, for all genders, not empowering one group of women above others. We told you in my first speech that this goes against the very principle of feminist movements. But we also gave you two practical arguments on why we should not do this, because we told you that we are perpetuating these already existing stereotypes and societal norms, but we also told you that we're limiting the freedom of women, because we are telling them from such a young age in their world that, you know, in order for you to be an empowered woman, you must act in a certain way. And we told you that this is not fair, and this is not something that the feminist movement should do. But okay, let's also analyze what happened in the West. Even if we take what they push on us. So they told us that we cannot take a neutral stance, which is something that we absolutely can, because that is the feminist movement in the status quo. But even if we buy what they say and tell you that that our stance is somehow the one that they push onto us, meaning that we somehow empower all the rest of the movement and leave these women without empowerment. Even in this kind of world, we tell you that women are better off. Why? We told you in the first speech that these women who do not conform to these traditional roles and traditional behaviors, they matter the most, because they are the people that usually join these feminist movements, because they see a safe place where they are valued, where the way they dress, the way they behave is valued and not, discriminated by society. So these people will be worse off on our side of the house if we, on their side of the house, if we actually take this proposal, because in their world we are pushing one group of women above others. And moreover, we also told you in this debate how women deserve to be treated equally. That is the core principle of the feminist movement, is to bring equality to all and not only a slight group of people. And in their world, only these people who are already proportionally better off than the others will be even more empowered. Why? We gave you a few mechanisms on this one, but now to again repeat them. We told you that because these women are not valued in society, when they come to work not wearing makeup, what will their colleagues tell them? Are you fine? Are you not a feminist? What are you? In our world, this does not happen, and we do not think that it should happen, because we stand for gender equality. We stand for an equal society where no group of women, no group of any individuals is supposed to be treated better than others. So proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you for a great debate. Now, if you could please shake hands and wait for us outside.